everyone, welcome back to Talking Toku, Boston's only podcast about Godzilla, Gamera, Ultraman, and all their kaiju friends. I'm your host, David Scrivani.
Co-host Brian Kershaw.
And we have no one else here with us today, unfortunately. Jake decided he didn't want to socialize with us anymore for the rest of time. And we thought we had another one of our friends, but he decided to bail on us as well.
He decided to get vaccinated and is now sitting in bed, I guess. So.
Oh, did he get vaccinated today or?
Today, like a couple hours ago.
Oh, okay. So any side effects aren't hitting him yet?
I saw him as I was leaving, and he said, "I'm starting to feel it."
Okay. When I got vaccinated, I felt nothing.
You got the Johnson & Johnson.
Okay.
The one shot. So I don't know if it's any different.
I wasn't aware that Johnson & Johnson was actually like out available yet. That's cool. I didn't know that. So good for him. Dakota, if you're listening, which you should be, good job. I'm proud of you.
Good for him getting the luck of the draw.
Yeah. My mom finally got in to get vaccinated. And keep in mind, she's technically in healthcare. She has to go. I think she finally got in like last week. It's all the way at Gillette Stadium, so it's like an hour's drive to go get vaccinated.
Oh God.
Yeah, whatever, man. All right, so Brian, what are we talking about today on Talking Toku?
We are talking about Pacific Rim: The Black.
That's right, Netflix's brand new Pacific Rim anime series. But before we get into that, we're going to get into the news. Do you have any news for us, Brian? I know I do.
Not currently. The Destiny 2 community thing between dinosaurs and kaiju. Dinosaurs won.
Dinosaurs won, dang. Oh well, maybe next time. So for all you Destiny players out there, no Godzilla skin.
All dozen of us.
All dozen of you. All right, well, I got some news here. First up, a spin-off of the latest Ultraman series. Ultraman Z just got announced called Scavenger Fight. Scavenger was one of the many robots that Storage, I believe, was the organization's name, that they used to battle kaiju. And Scavenger is one heck of a boy. He's a stocky little robot. Looks very 70s. I think that's because he debuted back in Ultraman Leo. But he's getting his own spin-off series that... So when I heard the title, Scavenger Fight, I assumed it'd be more along the lines of the Ultra Fight series. The latest one was Ultra Galaxy Fight, The Absolute Conspiracy. It's basically just all action, light on story. And that's the same case here, but it's got... The Ultra Fight series have a lot of... They have a higher budget, but with Scavenger, it's very much a Redman-esque series in that there's almost no budget. They grabbed some suits, went out to a quarry, and filmed people beating the crap out of each other.
Just like the old days.
Exactly. Like like you compare and contrast footage of that to footage of Redman, which we'll talk about at some point probably. It's essentially the same show. Like, so I'm really happy that we're getting more Scavenger because I love Scavenger. He's adorable, and I'll be excited to see if we get more of that. Also in Ultraman news, Mill Creek just announced 2 more Blu-ray sets for Ultraman. The first one being Ultra Galaxy Legends Mega Monster Battle and Ultra Galaxy Legends Mega Monster Battle Never-Ending Odyssey. And the other one is Ultra Galaxy Legends Side Story Ultraman Zero versus Darklops Zero, Ultraman Zero The Revenge of Belial, Ultraman Zero Side Story Killer of the Beatstar, and Ultraman Saga. That's a lot in one set. It's a lot to say as well. I don't know how they're going to abbreviate that when people talk about it, but who knows. That's good, though, because I know a lot of people really like Ultra Galaxy Legends. I myself have never seen it. I like most of the Ultraman series before Mill Creek started doing this, but I know people really like it, and people really like Ultraman Zero. So, speaking of Mill Creek Ultra sets, you started watching Ultra Q, Brian?
Negative.
Ooh. Better get started on that. I want to do an Ultra Q episode at some point of this podcast.
It is still sitting in my movie thing, and I will eventually get to it.
Eventually.
Now have free time.
I feel like you've had free time for quite a while since the pandemic started.
I have not had free time because I've been studying.
Okay.
and working.
All right. I've been working too.
Disregard the several months where I was on furlough, but
That sounds like a lot of free time.
that was before you were pressuring me.
And that also is true. I mean, I've been pressuring you ever since I lent you that disc.
A year ago.
Yeah. More than a year ago now.
I don't even remember.
I don't even remember either. That's how long it's been. All right. IDW Comics, who recently got the Godzilla license back. They were the ones who were responsible for the Kingdom of Monsters series, the Rulers of Earth, Gangsters and Goliaths, Half Century War, all of which are very, very good. They recently got the license to do Godzilla comics again, and as well as they announced one ongoing that I can't remember the name of, but point is the one they just announced, Godzilla Rivals, is going to be quarterly one-shot series focusing on various different kaiju. I guess similar to how they did the Godzilla Legends series a while ago. The first issue just got solicited. It's all about Hedorah, and it has E.J. Sue doing artwork, which is really, really cool because E.J. Sue did the Hedorah issue of Godzilla Legends as well, and I think that's one of the best issues of that miniseries. Yeah, so it sounds like there's going to be a couple one-shots focused on various monsters, Godzilla fighting various monsters. And yeah, I think that'll be really cool because, hey, more kaiju comics is always good.
It's what we're here for.
Exactly, it's what we're here for. Following up on a news piece from last time, more figures got unveiled for Godzilla Singular Point, as well as the aforementioned Godzilla Ultima and Jet Jaguar. Now we also have Anguirus and Manda. And that's great because people weren't really sure if that was Manda, myself included, but now we have confirmation that Manda is indeed in Godzilla Singular Point, and he looks very weird, but that's okay.
He's always looked weird to me.
Yeah, he's kind of a basic Eastern dragon. Nothing wrong with it, but...
Yeah, but put side by side to a lot of other monsters, he looks pretty generic, which
that's fair.
Which is what makes him weird.
Well, he definitely looks more unique now. He looks more like a amalgamation of various marine life, so that's kind of interesting.
All right, I'm interested to see.
Yeah, we'll see whenever we actually get Singular Point, because I don't think we actually do not have a U.S. release date for that, unfortunately. All right, and the final and probably most important piece of news this week, Godzilla vs. Kong has had press screenings, so people are getting first impressions of the newest Godzilla movie, and so far, outlook's pretty good. You know, I both me and you, Brian, we have talked at length about how disappointed we are in Godzilla King of the Monsters, and it sounds like a lot of people who also were disappointed in Godzilla King of the Monsters seem to be really enjoying Godzilla vs. Kong, which is really, really comforting to hear, I think. Let me see.
I am for sure comforted by that because I was real skeptical, especially with any production hiccups that could have happened with COVID.
Yeah, especially considering it got pushed back like what seemed like 4 or 5 times. I'm sure it's more like 2 or 3, but...
And then even right at the tail end there, when they actually announced the release, they're like, wait, no, just kidding. It's actually March 31st.
Yeah, I think I want to say the reason it got pushed back another week is just because they wanted to save room for Zack Snyder's Justice League to breathe and for people to watch that before moving on to the next big blockbuster.
That is a good point considering the response to that movie.
It's yeah. I mean, this is the second time on this show we mentioned Zack Snyder's Justice League, but both me and Brian have watched it, and we both really enjoyed it, I think.
I ate my words.
So did I.
I have been clowning on this project since it rose out of the ground like the zombie it was, and I was wrong. It was pretty enjoyable. Not perfect, but definitely a movie.
Definitely a movie.
That didn't make me wish... I mean, it still was entirely too long, but it was still good.
Yeah. So let me bring up some responses to Godzilla versus Kong, if my Twitter app would be cooperative, which it is so often not. I'll use this as a platform to shout out the good folks at Toho Kingdom, who run a phenomenal fan site, and my buddy Chris, who runs the Toho Kingdom socials and is the one who gets invited to all the press screenings and whatnot. So let's see what he said about Godzilla versus Kong.
Wait, so he saw it?
He saw it, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, he went a little into spoilers, but I'm not going to do that. I won't ruin it for everyone. But as I mentioned to you yesterday, I believe I messaged you about it, maybe the day before, I don't know. It certainly seems that they're going for big dumb fun, and after what happened, after the icky politics of King of the Monsters, I think that's kind of all. I feel like that's kind of the most we could have hoped for.
They were either going to double down on it or completely disregard it, and I would have rather disregarding it.
Yeah. Yeah, but so at Toho Kingdom says, this film is a put your brain in fun mode sort of film. Briskly paced, not a lot of character development, and huge leaps in logic. If you're someone who tries to tear down logic in movies, etc., you're going to drive yourself crazy with this one. The fights are spectacular, the visuals and choreography are top-notch, and the fights deliver. I didn't agree with the final outcome, but I'm sure there are those of you who will just flat-out love it. The film is very much a Kong film, and while Godzilla does show up and cause some trouble, the focus seems to be on Kong. There's even what seems to be a nod to King Kong Escapes, a movie I haven't actually seen.
Is that the one with the...
That's the one with Mechanicong.
Mechanicong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. While watching the battles, it would have been nice to hear some Ifukube, but what Junkie XL has in there is pretty awesome. I only heard it through my car speakers, the drive-in press screening. It'll be nice to hear through actual theater speakers next week. While the film does end with no post-credit sequence, you get the feeling that the MonsterVerse is just getting started. Final note, Godzilla does have a lot of screen time, and it's nice to finally see him in the daytime as well. Didn't want to give the impression that he's barely in the movie. I trust Chris. He's a pretty decent guy. So I think, judging from his impression at least, I will not be disappointed. I will enjoy the film pretty much entirely.
It really just sounded like what he was saying was that the CinemaSins of the world will have a terrible time.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? Good.
CinemaSins is an awful channel.
They are. And it took Jordan Vogt Roberts, the director of Kong Skull Island, tearing them a new one on the Honest Trailers channel to make me realize that. And that is still one of my favorite videos. If you guys have not seen the Honest Trailers video for Kong Skull Island, do yourself a favor, pause this podcast, go watch it, because it is phenomenal.
Also, just go follow Jordan on basically everything.
Basically everything.
Because he is hilarious and also really cool.
Yeah, he's constantly posting stuff about Kong and Metal Gear, and he just seems like such a great guy. This is also the second time we've shouted at Jordan Vogt Roberts on the show.
He's making a Metal Gear movie, though,
He
right?
is. It's been in development hell for a while now.
To be expected. That's kind of how video game movies roll.
Yeah. All right, well, that's about it for the news today. Brian, you want to get into Pacific Rim the Black?
Pacific Rim the Black. It is a anime, and I watched it.
I know. That's probably the most shocking thing here.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often. I usually don't watch them on my own fruition. It usually takes someone to ask me to. But I watched it because I like Pacific Rim, and I wanted something better than Uprising, and this definitely was. It had, for me, a lot of the same things that I don't like about most animes.
Before we go any further, I just want to stress that we will be talking about spoilers. So, if you have any plans to watch Pacific Rim the Black and don't want it spoiled, I suggest coming back to listen to the podcast about our thoughts after you watch it. If not, feel free to just keep on trucking.
Yeah, we'll just wait here for you.
Yeah.
We'll wait here all day.
Yeah, we got until 5 o'clock before we need to vacate the room. So, as long as you can watch it between now and... If you can watch the series right now, in the next hour and a half from when we're recording this, which is at 3:25 on March 22nd, get on it.
Well, actually, speaking of that, this is not a long series.
It's not.
It is actually really brisk. If you want to binge it, me and my buddy, who is supposed to be here but is not due to COVID, or reverse COVID. We watched it in about a couple hours. Didn't really seem that long. We had a good time. It was good. The biggest surprise is that the coolest thing in the show could not have happened without Pacific Rim Uprising.
I know,
and I
right?
don't know how I feel about it.
I was kind of shocked that they. I mean, to be fair, so what we're talking about is the. I don't remember how they worded it in Uprising, but it's basically a Jaeger drone. So a Jaeger, which is the mechs from the Pacific Rim universe, an unpiloted mech spliced with that has kaiju DNA spliced in. And that was actually one of the cooler things from Pacific Rim Uprising. And I think that was one of the very few things that Guillermo del Toro, who directed the first movie, that was one of his ideas, one of the few ideas of his that made it into the sequel. So who would have thought that one of the better things from that movie would have come from del Toro? But yeah, and they did something really, really cool with that in the Black. Like they made one of the few surviving Jaeger drones into, like, I don't want to say antagonist because it really wasn't an antagonist.
He kind of just seemed to be on his own.
Yeah.
It is it like at the end of Uprising, like they all died, I guess. But then this one just kind of didn't.
I don't recall, because like before we like really get introduced to the drone, which what were they? His name's Apex.
Yeah, his name is Apex, which is awesome.
Yeah, it also kind of shows that like all the Jaegers from Pacific Rim Uprising, they're just destroyed, and the pilots are just assumed dead. Which I don't remember much from the ending of Uprising, but I'm pretty sure they didn't all die at the end.
No, but I mean, like, to be honest, I'm a little unclear about where the show takes place.
So was I, because I think in one of the episodes, it's when the main character Taylor, he does the ghost piloting thing where he pilots the Jaeger by himself, and he uses the memory of Herc Hansen, one of the characters from the first Pacific Rim, to kind of drift with. And you see Herc's last mission, which takes place concurrently with the very, very beginning of the show. And if I remember correctly, there's was there a 5-year time skip?
Something like that.
But
yeah, 5 years.
But the problem is, if Herc was still working at that time when the Black is initiated, so the Black in Pacific Rim, the Black was, they basically shut Australia down as a continent. Like they took all the Jaegers out, and like it's just kind of it's kind of like a Mad Max wasteland. Ironic because it's Australia. So, but the thing is, I kind of assumed that Herc was done for the most part in the first Pacific Rim movie, because that's when they moved Striker Eureka to the Hong Kong base. But the Pacific Rim takes place in 2025. Uprising takes place in 2035. If there is a 5-year time skip from the beginning of the Black to the main events, that would place it as taking place between the two movies. But the inclusion of Apex and the kaiju drones would imply that it takes place after Uprising. So the timeline for this is very odd. I don't really understand it.
And also, if this, like, I mean, Herc would be like in his 60s at
He
this
would.
point, which is not, I mean, like, you're not doing any, like, you're not physically, like, you yourself doing anything, but you're still getting thrown around in that thing and definitely in risk of dying.
Yeah.
So, like, it doesn't really make much sense. The movie, like, in its continuity is kind of...
Yeah, wait, hold on.
Garbled.
Striker Eureka got destroyed at the end of the first Pacific Rim.
Unless they rebuilt him.
But...
Yeah, it don't make much...
I'm getting myself even more and more confused.
It doesn't make much sense. I was kind of confused at where this movie was while I was watching it, and I kind of just stopped thinking about it because I was like, I know that no matter what outcome my brain comes up with, I'm going to be disappointed in how it was handled.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to say, like, we just got to this point somehow.
I mean, Pacific Rim in general is kind of a franchise that you shouldn't really think about too hard.
The first movie has very consistent rules.
Yes.
But then Uprising doesn't have any, and then this show definitely doesn't have any.
Again, we haven't seen Uprising since it was in theaters in 2018. I was under the impression that they had stopped more breaches from opening in Uprising.
Yeah.
So how are more breaches still opening?
So
in the black?
That is a great question. Sure, we're gonna learn about it because this show ends on a cliffhanger.
It does, and what a cliffhanger it is too.
Boy.
Okay, so hold on. We should go through this. So I think in the second episode, our lead characters Taylor and Haley, who I love, they're really great characters. They have such great chemistry together, which is the point because they're brother and sister, and B they're drift compatible.
They are cool characters that I like most of the time, but man, there's some not good dialogue sometimes.
Well, that tends to happen when you're working with anime because a lot of the dialogue is kind of over exaggerated. But
yeah, that's why I mentioned earlier, this show has a lot of problems that I just have with anime, inherently, a lot of it seems just way too over exaggerated and not how people function, and that's just for me personally, that weirds me out.
See that I've read a thing about that specific problem a while ago, is that that's why a lot of people who watch anime prefer watching the subtitled version rather than the dubbed version, because with the subtitle version, you don't really know the language that well to be able to know whether the acting is bad or not. And I'm oh, that's really accurate actually.
Was this wait? I don't even remember at this point. Was this show just in English or
no? It was a Japanese production. It was from the same company that did the Netflix Godzilla trilogy.
Yeah, because I think I'm just now realizing that I actually didn't watch the Japanese one.
I watched the subbed version,
but I didn't even think about it. Because maybe I would enjoy it better.
I don't know,
but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but so anyways, so in the second episode, our two main characters, Taylor and Haley, they're trying to find a power cell for their Jaeger Atlas destroyer, and they go into a Pan Pacific Defense Corps base or something. It doesn't really matter, and they find this weird kid in a tube.
Boy,
who they end up calling Boy, and I remember in the third episode, Taylor's we're not calling him, James or Rick or Chad. I'm call him Chad, please call him Chad. But yeah, they just call him Boy. I'm not really sure why because then they actually get attached to him and they just keep calling him Boy. Point is, at the very end, so when we meet the Jaeger drone kaiju thing, Apex, there's some implications that something is very weird with Boy. And we get that throughout the entire series too. There's something off about him.
Yeah, he's killing animals and
yeah, and not getting affected by snake bites or anything, or getting shot even.
Yeah, I forgot he got just shot.
Yeah, he just got shot point blank, and he just picked himself back up and hit the guy with a stick. But at the very end of the series, it's revealed, Boy's a kaiju.
Yeah, he just his eyes glow red, and he just powers up and turns into one.
Yeah,
like a regular one, like a blue.
Yeah,
yeah.
Albeit one a lot smaller than the other kaiju that he was fighting, Copperhead. But still, it was obviously, we knew something was wrong with Boy. That was not what I was expecting.
I did not expect him to just morph into one. I definitely knew that he was otherworldly.
Yeah,
because this show, so far, they're not introducing any fantastical fantasy elements. So it's just there's definitely going to be some kind of implications with him, either being attached to the precursors in the other world or something. But I didn't expect him to just get angry and Hulk turn into a kaiju just out of nowhere. It was really jarring at first.
It was a little jarring, but it's still really interesting the way they're expanding on this universe so much.
Yeah, I mean, like even at the end of the show, I don't know, remember who said it, but they're just like, well, now we know that the precursors can make kaiju that look like us, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's something else.
It's really interesting. I cannot wait to see where they go with this. And after we find out at the very end of the series, there's like a kaiju cult.
Who was sort of teased near the beginning of the show. There was like that trade deal thing between like the old scary dude and then that other guy, and then there's just like, yeah, if I don't get these eggs to these three,
Oh yeah,
they'll be mad at me.
that's right.
And I mean, that was never resolved. I had a feeling they'd show up eventually, but I'm guessing that's who they are.
Maybe. And there was implications in the first movie that people kind of, I mean, not even implications. Ron Perlman's character, I can't remember his name.
It was like a mix of some stuff that
It was like my favorite warlord and my favorite Chinese restaurant or something. Hannibal Chow. That's his name, Hannibal Chow.
Dude, that man is a legend.
Yeah, so he tells Newt that people think the kaiju were sent from God, and there's like you very clearly see a church made out of a kaiju skeleton. So we knew that was like a thing in the universe, but now it's very clear that we're actually going to get to see like how these kaiju cults operate, and I think that going forward, that's going to be really, really interesting because they have these like weird, creepy doll masks, and they have some measure of control over the little kaiju hounds, which I love. Those guys are adorable.
They were pretty sick.
My headcanon going when I first saw them was that I just kind of figured that the kaiju themselves keep those as pets, and then they immediately got eaten by not Atlas Destroyer, by Apex. I'm like, oh, there goes that headcanon.
Well, I mean, Apex
is
on no side.
Yeah, well, but we didn't know that when we first meet him in that second episode.
I thought, though, one of the more interesting yet really funny lines in the moment was Kaiju Messiah.
Oh, yeah, they called Boy the Kaiju Messiah. That's right.
And I was like, oh boy, that is the funniest title I've ever heard.
I wouldn't mind that being my title. I wouldn't mind being the Kaiju Messiah.
Change the name of the podcast.
Oh, damn, that ain't half bad an idea. All right, welcome to Kaiju Messiah, Boston's only podcast about Godzilla, Gamera, Ultraman, and all their kaiju friends. But yeah, I really like the direction they're taking this universe. It almost feels like they're sort of course correcting from Uprising, because I noticed, like, you know, one of my, not my biggest problems, but a big problem of Uprising is that nothing has any weight to it, like the first movie. It's all just very, very fluid, and that was not the case in The Black. I think Apex moved very, very quickly, but I think that was because of his kaiju Jaeger physiology.
Well, Apex, while being a machine, is also mostly organic, or at least half and half, I'd say.
Yeah, but no, like everything moved really slowly and had weight to it, and that's something that should not be understated in kaiju anything, in my opinion.
And seeing Atlas Destroyer fall flat on its face due to a power cell being empty was pretty funny.
Very much. What do you think about the kaiju designs in this series? There weren't many, but
I liked Copperhead. I thought he was pretty cool. I appreciate that they kind of kept the kaiju villain consistent. I thought it was a little weird that they kept using Copperhead, but like thematically it makes sense that he is the final fight. But I do like Copperhead. I liked the other kind of like Ely one.
Yeah, and when we first meet like Shane Bogan, yeah, I described it to our friend here, Howard, that it's basically the big fish monster from the Phantom Menace, the one where Qui-Gon says there's always a bigger fish. It's essentially, it looks exactly like that, just a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And red.
Yeah, it actually does. I like the smaller sized ones like that, and then the dogs. There's also another one that's like seen like near the beginning-ish
Yeah,
of the
it was
movie.
they called. I think they mentioned its name near the end because they see it again. I think it was like Acid Fang or something like that. It had like the
Yeah,
weird tentacles on its back.
it looked. I mean, that one was a little strange just because like it looked kind of rigid, like
Hmm.
because it had a bunch of tentacles, and you're just like, you would think it would kind of move around a bit,
Yeah.
but I don't know. But I thought it was a cool design regardless. That's
Hmm.
more of an animation fault.
Yeah.
Um, but the designs were cool. They definitely seemed like they were large instead of just whatever Uprising was
Yeah, and I
doing.
do like the fact that they're kind of playing with size discrepancies too, because other than Copperhead and the Acid Boy, I'm gonna call him Acid Boy, the other kaiju are like relatively small. Like the kaiju hounds are like they're a 6 foot tall human would probably come up to shoulder height on those things, and then the eel thing was like not that big either.
Well, yeah, I mean, like honestly, it kind of solves one of my biggest questions about even the beginning, like of this series, Pacific Rim One, is that the plan for the precursors was just to send a bunch of kaiju and just destroy the Earth
Mm,
through that.
yeah,
But I was also like, giant monsters, while effective, aren't so effective that you'll wipe everyone out.
but they're
Y-
cool.
They're cool, but if you want to be efficient, you want to mix in some smaller things
Hmm.
because giant monsters aren't going to reach everything.
Yeah. Well,
Like it was solved in the movie by going into a bunker.
yeah,
I was like, if you just throw a small one in there, just like crawls out of the other one.
exactly.
Even like the baby Otachi,
Yeah.
that could have done the job.
Well, it's interesting because it might have just been a throwaway line, but I'm hoping it's not. Because when we meet that eel looking thing, Taylor mentions that there's no record of it in any PPDC records at all. So, what does that mean? Was it something that was it like like an Earth-based creature that like mutated from getting in contact with kaiju DNA, or what?
I mean, with the amount of like the movies, they stress like these things, their blood is toxic,
Yeah.
and like I mean, what else? Like, if you look at like any piece of fiction with like Chernobyl, they're just like, oh yeah, radiation turns like bears into like weird two-headed bear things that
Yeah.
kill people. I mean, they could do the same kind of thing with like kaiju blood.
Yeah. I'm hoping that they do go a little more into that. But I don't want like season 2 to be too overcrowded with, the cultists and then possibly this theory that we're cooking up together.
Yeah, I think that they could very easily overcrowd the show with directions.
Hmm.
So definitely take it one thing at a time. If they're gonna make a second season, I'd rather just have it focus on the cult.
Yeah, I think they already have greenlit a second season. I could be wrong about that, but I could have sworn I saw that they had greenlit one before this one had even started airing.
Do you think they're gonna try to leave the continent?
I would imagine so. I think that's a natural um what's the word I'm looking here for?
Progression?
Progression, thank you. I think them leaving the continent is a natural progression for what the story they want to tell is. I mean, it's because think about it, like the entirety of Australia is off the grid. Like no one has any contact with anyone outside Australia.
Yeah, but they don't have contact with anyone outside of Australia
That's
either.
true.
So we don't know what's going on.
We don't, because this takes place after Uprising. Who knows what could have happened between then and now?
And also, like, when it comes to giant monsters, what is blacking out a continent gonna do?
Yeah, that's also true. Who knows? Because I mean, we see Copperhead like just kind of like hanging out when
Because
he's
like,
not in cities or hunting Jaegers. He's just
like
kind of like, yeah,
Copperhead is he's like a land-based kaiju, but like basically all of them that we've seen are aquatic,
yeah,
or at least
have the ability to swim.
the ability.
And I assume
to,
Copperhead
yeah.
also has that as well. Because like you look at Leatherback from the first movie, like he's not aquatic at all, but he can swim.
See, that's the thing though. Like, I saw Copperhead and I was like, he looks like he is strictly meant for land.
Mm.
And with how breaches are now opening, I'm kind of thinking maybe the precursors have just decided, like, we'll make them more specialized.
That's true.
Because, like, they're still clones, but it doesn't mean they can't change designs.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of interested to see what they do with... If they're going to keep it, like, they're just all able to, you know, if they make them specialized to be able to just walk around on land, whatever, because it seems like they can open breaches wherever they want now.
Yeah.
So there's really not a need for them to do any swimming, you know. And Copperhead, he's really armored up, so that's not really good for swimming.
Yeah. Well, can think about it this way: like, Anguirus can swim.
Yeah, but how much sense does that really make?
How much sense does anything in Pacific Rim make?
That is a great point.
We already went over the fact that, you know, you're not. This is a franchise they're not really supposed to think about too hard.
That's a good point. But I guess I'm just like asking this because, like, when it comes to the progression of the world, it doesn't seem like they're not coming out of the ocean strictly anymore.
Yeah.
So it's they can kind of just come out wherever they want. So it'd be interesting to see if, due to that, the designs change a bit.
Yeah.
Like, because Copperhead was like an armadillo-looking thing, which is pretty cool. Sadly, he didn't really turn into a ball or anything.
Yeah, but he did kind of like
He did it.
He charged a lot.
Yeah, he did a spin move.
He did a spin move.
Sorta. However, what the pinnacle of things not making sense is that at the end of the show, they shot a nuke, and it was definitely not a nuke.
Yes. Well, they mentioned more than once that I don't remember what the Jaeger's name was. They mentioned that twice, both at the beginning of the series and at the end there, that they're armed with nukes, and you know they thrust a nuke down the thing's throat and it blows up and it's fine. There's no, the explosion's not that big, so I don't know. I mean, they're clearly not nukes. They're clearly not nukes.
Like, the rest of the show, I was like, okay, I can suspend my disbelief and, you know, whatever. But I was just like, okay, this is a nuke. And
Yeah.
you are going to be hard-pressed to find anyone who doesn't know what a nuke does, or at least looks like.
Yeah, maybe it's something to do with, it's a mistranslation, maybe.
I mean, that's true. I'd probably have to watch the Japanese version to see.
But like, there's no way they're actually nukes. A, the explosion isn't big enough, and B, everyone who lived in Shadow Basin wasn't dying of cancer.
Yeah, it was definitely like a ballistic missile.
Yeah,
like a high tonnage ballistic missile.
Exactly,
for sure.
I will say it was kind of funny when Copperhead died, because he kind of like inflates and then he blows up. I'm like, that's really unintentionally hilarious, and I love it.
Yeah,
he blows up like a. You know what it reminded me of? From the first Shrek movie.
No.
When Fiona grabs the frog and blows it up like a balloon. That's what it looked like.
Absolutely not.
Yes, it did.
I don't want to think about that.
All right, next episode, we're not doing Godzilla vs. Kong. We're doing Shrek. There's a giant monster in that. There's a dragon.
I mean, you're not wrong. But there's also like giant monsters in Snyder Cut.
That is true.
Sorta.
All right, so one more thing about Pacific Rim: The Black before we move on. Do you think we're going to get any of the plot threads from Uprising continued into here? Because there is the whole John Boyega's character tells Newt, tell the precursors, we're coming to them. They are not going to come to us this time. We're coming for them.
I think that plot threads introduced in Uprising will not be continued.
Okay.
Because that movie is universally hated.
Not so much. I have a friend who actually prefers Uprising to the first movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't...
Let me rephrase that. Mostly hated.
Okay.
There are definitely more people who were not satisfied with it.
Mm.
And I think that with this show, they may take elements from Uprising. Like, obviously, you get Apex.
Yeah.
Which, best part of the show for me.
Mm.
His introduction was really cool.
And he has a great design in general, too.
And even on that note, I don't think he's gone. I think he's going to come back. You know, I don't think they're just going to introduce something that awesome.
Yeah.
And
Considering
leave it.
he made that neural connection with Boy and Haley as well.
Yeah. So he's definitely not gone. As for like, I don't think there's going to be any returning characters for sure. And I don't really think they're going to go directly attack the precursors. I don't think that's really in the cards.
Yeah,
nor should it be, because this is a much smaller scale.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a much tighter story.
Like if you're gonna do that, you're gonna want like a full movie.
Yeah, it's not as world saving
Yeah, like
as
this
a movie.
This show would not translate into a movie.
No, I don't think it would.
But you could make a show out of, or you can make a movie from going to attack. Like that would work fine. So if they're gonna do that, I'd rather have that as a sequel. For the show, I think it's gonna keep on its own kind of ground that it's built. I think they're gonna continue with their cult, and any weird boy stuff. Definitely.
Do you think Boy will be able to turn back into a human child?
I don't know. I was kind of thinking about that because like his physiology is so different now that like how do you turn back into that small child?
I mean, I guess we don't really know much about his physiology in general.
I guess so, but like
my guess is that's why the PBDC had him in that too, because they were trying to study exactly how his body works.
Yeah. But why did he need the power cell?
I don't know.
I don't know either. But yeah, I'm interested to see where they go with that for sure.
Yeah.
And as for Boy turning back, maybe.
Okay. Do you think we'll see Shane again, or the main antagonist?
Definitely. He was way too threatening to not be brought back.
I know I said this was the last thing we were going to cover, but like, can we talk about how like dark this show got at some points?
I actually did want to mention that one of the coolest things about this show explained was kind of like different aspects of drifting. And I was like, okay.
Oh my
like
God. Shane interrogating Taylor using the drift?
Yeah, Shane.
That was so cool.
Shane used the drift as an interrogation device, and he also used it to manipulate people by kind of giving himself a sympathetic background to manipulate people. And I was like, all right, that's really cool. And then also with like Taylor having to ghost drift because he kind of connected with the last neural whatever of Herc.
Yeah.
He took on his own characteristics, and he's just like, these are my memories, but
yeah.
they're not. And I was like, that's really cool, because like those are some like legitimate consequences of doing that. And like with how open your mind is to someone else's, like that's really cool. And also really scary, especially the interrogation part.
Yeah, that was like the first thing in the series that made my eyebrows raise up. I'm like, oh, that's a really cool idea, actually.
That was one of the things that really disappointed me about Uprising, is that they had room to expand on what drifting is, and drifting is a really cool idea. It's a really cool plot point, and they had a lot of room to expand on it from where Guillermo del Toro left it off. And I thought this show definitely expanded on it way better than the sequel did.
Yeah,
and I thought it was really cool. So,
see, when I mentioned like how dark it got, like the second episode, Haley's like, everyone we loved is dead, and it's my fault. And then what's his name, Joel's death. After May leaves Bogan with Joel, and Shane tries to contact May with the radio, and then the radio blows up in Joel's face. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, that part was like actually shocking. I was watching it with my buddy, and it kind of just like, we were just like, okay, this is like the down point of the show. So I just like start checking my feed, and then all of a sudden I look up, and it's like him on the radio, and his face explodes, and I'm like, what? Because I thought for sure they were going to make him a main character.
Yeah.
Because he was like, pretty cool. But then they just murdered him.
Yeah, no, it definitely seemed like that was the route they were going to go with making Joel, join the team, as it were, like they did with May. But no, they just killed him off. And it was interesting because he was the one they were trying to get Atlas Destroyer back online with, and he kept drifting with so many people. The fact that he kind of started to have a stroke because of the toll it was taking on his mind. But oh well, rest in peace, Joel.
But I mean, maybe he's like still in the drift somewhere.
That would be interesting.
I was
The
thinking
the fact that they're doing interesting is off the drift like that. Might be the case.
Because like May, who is like the dark person in this show, like with the really like screwed up past and whatever, like she was really like obviously upset about it because it was her fault.
Yeah.
Sorta. Not really. I don't know whose fault it is. I mean, like she'll probably. I mean, like I don't know with how the drift is. It's kind of still ambiguous whether like an essence of a person is still in there or if it's just memory.
Especially considering that like we know Jaegers can store neural data from other pilots, and B, the fact that Joel was like kind of trying to be buddy with the AI in Atlas Destroyer. So it's certainly something that could be done.
And also, there's probably still a ton of neural data of Joel in there because of all the drifting he was trying to do in the show. Mm-hmm. So I mean, like honestly, who knows at this point? I would not be surprised if they bring him back in some capacity, maybe as a new ship AI.
Oh, that would be really cool, actually.
Yeah, like maybe if Loa,
yeah,
if Loa like gets damaged.
Well, we definitely saw her like kind of glitch out in that one episode, and we never got an explanation for that.
She was freaking out, and that was never resolved, was it?
Taylor asked her, "Hey, what happened?" And she was just like, archival file. Don't worry about it." And that's all we got from that.
Oh, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
I'm sure we will too. Yeah. Final thoughts about Pacific Rim: The Black?
Pretty good. It's going in some interesting directions for any Pacific Rim fans. Definitely worth a watch, even if you're not super keen on anime. Coming from someone like that, I give it a recommendation. You can bang it out in a night. Doesn't take very long. The episodes are about 20 to 30 minutes. Usually 20, I think. And there's only about 7 episodes.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very solid entry into a universe that I think a lot of people just kind of considered dead after Uprising. And the fact that we're getting content like this still I think is a testament to good things to come from Pacific Rim.
The shot in the arm that it needed.
Absolutely, I agree. All right, and with that, we'll move on to our next segment. What cool new kaiju thing have you been checking out, Brian, other than Pacific Rim: The Black, if anything?
Not much.
Don't say Justice League.
Not just. I mean, I did watch. I mean, that is a kaiju of a movie because it is so large. But other than Pacific Rim, not much. Really, just kind of looking forward to Godzilla vs. Kong. That's about it.
I've been reading some comics, actually, personally. Marvel just dropped their first issue of The Trials of Ultraman, which is a follow-up to last year's The Rise of Ultraman. Still not really sure where the series is going to go.
What's the trial?
I don't really know. They haven't really gotten... I guess just fighting kaiju is the trial.
Oh. Well, I mean, then every kaiju movie is a trial.
Yeah. But no, it's a kind of an interesting read. It's I like what Marvel's doing with the Ultraman mythos. That's for sure. They're kind of updating it for, people who aren't really familiar with the history of the franchise.
Yeah, but when is he gonna fight the Avengers?
I mean, Godzilla fought the Avengers
a long time ago.
Back in the 70s, yeah.
Yeah. Should see that again.
Yeah. And then I've also, another comic I checked out was Ultra Mega, which is I think from Boom Comics, I want to say. Boom or Image. And it's, as you could probably tell from the title, it's an Ultraman kind of a comic, but it's got a lot of really like disturbing body horror elements to it. Like the artwork is phenomenal.
So it's kind of like horror focused.
It's very horror focused. Like they're like, I'll have to show you. I'll have to lend you the comic to see what I really mean, because it's kind of hard to describe. But it's like there is some really disturbing imagery in the comic, It's basically like, and so kaiju are like a disease. Like it's something that infects people and it turns them into kaiju. And then there's like there's like an Ultraman-esque thing. It's not even it's not really even a disease. It's only like 3 people who have them. 2 now because I think one of them's dead. But yeah, so like the person who has the Ultraman kind of thing, it's just called Ultra Mega. The person who has the Ultra Mega thing, they can sense when there's someone around who's about to turn into a kaiju, and then their power just kind of activates.
Wait, so they turn into a kaiju like boy, or did they like?
They turn into an Ultraman kind of thing.
Okay.
And then the kaiju, they don't really show people turning into the kaiju. They just kind of, one panel it's a person, next panel, boom, they're a kaiju.
Okay, because I was kind of assuming that, like, talking about body horror, that they would like contort into.
There's some stuff like that. Like there's the main conflict of the first issue is that the main character's ex-wife, she was infected, and he just, instead of like, killing his wife, he just left, and to not have, and just assumed she'd die of her own, just from some other way. He didn't want to kill his wife, obviously.
Understandably.
But it's revealed that like she's still alive and she's still infected and has been like mutating ever since. It's really disturbing, and the fact and the art, I can't remember who the artist is, but they did such a good job because it's so unsettling to look at.
Kind of interested in this.
Yeah, I'll definitely lend you my issue next time I see you after this.
Probably for next episode.
Most likely, yes. Yeah. But that's the cool new kaiju things plural I've been checking out. You have anything else to add, Brian, before we wrap up?
No, I mean, on the eve of a big blockbuster kaiju movie, so always a little excited.
Yeah,
holding my hype.
Yeah, we're cautiously optimistic for Godzilla vs. Kong.
I mean, with that review, I'm definitely a bit more cautiously optimistic. The trailers weren't really doing it for me, but hearing a good review, I mean, like that's about as good as it's gonna get in terms of validation.
Yeah.
So,
and right before we sign off, let's talk real quick, because this is no longer considered a spoiler because the director Adam Wingard posted it right up on his Instagram. Mechagodzilla, how we feeling?
Pretty hyped. Full disclosure, Mechagodzilla is my favorite kaiju. I have his name tattooed onto me.
Yep.
We already knew he was going to be in the movie through
toy leaks.
Toy leaks, and I mean you could see it in the trailer
briefly, but you can see him
in the first couple seconds. You could see it.
Yeah.
So kind of already knew it was there. I'm really excited. Like, I have a feeling he's not going to be quite as cool as like old school Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, because both of us were kind of not crazy about the design, but again, we only saw the design through really poorly made toys. The more I see of the toy, the more I'm kind of warming to the design. It's still not great, but I don't hate it anymore. It definitely seems more like a cobbled together Mechagodzilla than something that like Aliens or the Japanese Self-Defense Force created.
Yeah, he's definitely not like a OG Mechagodzilla or like a Kiryu.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want, like, I remember seeing the design and kind of being like, not the best. Don't really like the coloring. Looks a little strange.
Yeah.
But I realized that when it comes to on-screen stuff, it all depends on...
It's going to look way better on screen, I'm sure.
It all depends on, like, lighting and where you put it and the scale and what environment it's in. Like, I'm sure, for instance, like, if you've seen any press release on, like, a superhero costume and it's in, like, good lighting, it looks awful.
Yeah.
Like, way back when they released, like, pictures for, like, the Daredevil. Like, he looked stupid. He looked, like, even in his good, like, like, the first season costume, like, in good lighting, it just looks dumb because it's just a guy in pajamas.
Yeah.
But in good lighting and put in a good situation, like, it looks really cool. And I figured that it's going to be much the same with giant monsters. Like, in good lighting, I think Godzilla looks kind of weird, but most of the time you see him in the dark or, near colors that kind of complement him.
Well, apparently this movie has a lot of daytime footage, and from what people said, it looks really good. And the reason for that being is because they have Weta Digital working on it, who did the effects for the Planet of the Apes trilogy, and Rampage, which both look phenomenal.
Rampage is low-key underrated.
It is. I actually rewatched it with a couple weeks ago because my dad had never seen it, and I forgot how much of a treat that movie is. But
we are gonna have to review that.
I would love to. But yeah, like Weta Digital is like one of the best visual effects companies out there. Like their level of detail is impeccable.
Yeah, I didn't even know that, so I'm psyched about that.
Yeah,
I mean,
you look at you look at the shot in the trailer, that last shot of Kong's face as he's like winding up to hit Godzilla with the axe. You can all the details on his face is incredible.
Yeah, I did notice that Kong looked especially good in the trailers. With Godzilla, it's like
it's harder to tell because with Kong you have something real world to compare it to.
Yeah, Kong is like he's not grounded, but he's comparable to something. Like he is, there are gorillas in real life. They're real.
Yes, they are real.
That's comparable. But with Godzilla, he's so fantastical that like either he's a hit or a miss, and you can't really compare him to anything.
I mean, there's a shot from a TV spot where it's zoomed in on Godzilla's eye, and you like see Mechagodzilla's reflection in his eye, and just like the details around his face, around his eye, it looks incredible. It looks so good.
Now, do you think all the detail caused the delays?
I don't think so. I think Weta, they're good at what they do. Like we never really heard of a lot of delays on anything else they've done. Like the Planet of the Apes, which is like, for me, like absolute gold standard for visual effects.
I'm not even a huge fan of those movies, and I think the visual effects
they're
really
incredible.
Are second to none.
Yeah. So I don't think that was the case for the visuals. I think it was just a combination of poor response from King of the Monsters and COVID.
Yeah, I was definitely going to say it's just COVID related production issues. But yeah, I'm excited about this movie as much as I am allowing myself to be. But
we wouldn't be doing this podcast if we weren't excited for it. I don't think.
Yeah, I would be a super downer too if I wasn't. If I'd be here like just trashing on the movie, like it looks like garbage.
Well, hey, maybe we'll have to trash it depending on how it is.
I hope not.
I don't want to trash it either.
I hate being a bummer about stuff.
Yeah, me too.
I remember how disappointed I was about King of the Monsters and Uprising too.
Yeah.
So,
but we'll find out next time on Talking Toku. We'll be here probably another 2 weeks, same as this one.
Yep.
That should be a week after Godzilla vs. Kong drops, I want to say, if my math is right on calendars. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it comes out
next week.
Next week, and then probably have enough time for a watch and then a rewatch. Yeah. I'll probably watch it twice.
Yeah, most likely. So yeah, tune in next time for when Brian and I talk all about Godzilla vs. Kong
and Rampage.
And well, we won't do that next time. I mean, that can be its own episode.
We'll have to make a Rampage segment for every
Rampage
episode.
segment. Yeah. Okay. If you want to figure out a way to fit Rampage into every discussion we have, feel free.
We'll call it the George segment.
All right, works for me.
Okay.
All right, well, with that, I'm your host, David Scrivani.
I am your coach.